And so by productizing too early, you're literally going out of your way to stick a square peg in round holes. And people who have round holes do not like square pegs being forced into them. So don't do it. Welcome to the Marketing Report. My name is Russell Pearson, and this is episode number 74. The Marketing Report is a podcast for passionate yet frustrated business owners who are looking for a competitive edge. And the competitive edge we're going to be talking about today is sales. And this might actually be the third time I've talked about this, because every time there was an issue with the podcast recording. So, hopefully, third time is the charm. But today I want to talk about sales because it's interesting. I did a poll this week on social media to talk about what is the thing that frustrates you most about sales, and there were some really interesting results, which I'll share with you in just a moment. But people's relationship with sales is an interesting one. There are people walking around, and a lot of people, who are wearing like a badge of honor that they don't sell. So I'll often hear the conversation of, well, I don't need to sell because I get all my work from referrals. And they wear that like a badge of honor, like they think that that's a good thing. But what that tells me is that they're a small business and they haven't grown to their potential. And even when they tell me that and they go, well, I'm turning over several $1 million, they're usually in an industry where people are turning over several $1 billion. And so it's a limitation, because if you're just receiving referrals to build your business, you might think that, yeah, that's because I'm good at what I do, so people tell other people about me, and that's fantastic. And you are probably really good at what you do. But that means, number one, you're only getting new customers when someone else decides that you should, which is never a strategy. Not for growth anyway. Number two is that you're missing out on helping so many other people. It means that there are people walking around that you could help and that you are the right person to help. And you're not going to help them because some shonky person up the road is actually good at communication, and they've engaged them, they've gone out and engaged them and brought them into their world, and they're going to do a bad job of helping that person out. So by you not doing sales, by you not doing marketing and actually engaging those people around you who might have the problems that you can solve, you're basically allowing that person to walk up the street to someone who's going to do a bad job. You shouldn't be doing that. You should be feeling at least a little bit responsible for the people who are walking around with a problem that don't know what the solution could be. You've got a solution. Help those people. Because at the end of the day, that's all sales is. It's helping people. And even in the heaviest version of sales, it's helping people say yes, because they don't know what option to choose, or they don't know how to get started, or they're stuck in overwhelm. So sales has a bad name, and it shouldn't. It's all about helping people. And so the same as when I hear the word, someone says problem, I love using the word problem because it means that there's an opportunity to solve something. But that's how I work. Other people, I say the word problem, they go, I don't like the word problem, but the same thing happens with sales. So we'll put that to the side, because it is one of those things that we just need to be aware of our relationship with it, because we do sell. And we sell in so many other spaces. From the day we're born, we're screaming for mother's milk and actually doing a sales role on our parents to get something. It's even from like whether you're choosing a movie with your partner, or whether you're just trying to convince somebody of an idea and actually have that idea stick. All of that's sales. There's nothing wrong with sales. It's just communication, and it's good communication, and it's communication that helps people. So let me get to this poll. So the poll itself was asking, which of these frustrates you the most in sales? And there were 4 options. The first one was time wasters wanting free info, which tends to happen a lot with people who have expertise. The second was coffee chats that go nowhere. All right, so coffee chats, we'll talk to that in a moment, but that happens a lot. People not showing up for calls. I am finding that happening a little bit more than the normal, but there are ways around it. And number 4 is people ghosting you after a proposal. Now, for those who don't know what ghosting is, that's if you were to send a proposal and you go to contact that person again and they've disappeared like a ghost. They won't answer your calls, they won't answer your emails, and they've just sort of like, they don't want to have the awkward conversation a lot of the time to tell you no. So they'll ghost you. And it's interesting right now because we're only in day one. We've completed day one of a 7-day poll. I've already got 106 people voting on it. And 52% of those people are saying that ghosting is the big one. So it's far and away the big one. So I will touch on that in a minute as to how do you fix it. So the question is, how do you go from, how do you go from having an awkward relationship with sales, having trouble selling, having people waste your time, having these coffee chats all the time, or it devolving into a coffee chat, people not showing up for calls, and people ghosting you, right? How do you stop that and move from there to being confident in sales and confident in your ability to sell and have it feel natural, the type of conversations you're having around sales? Well, you don't just get there by being yourself. It's not just about being yourself. I think being yourself is absolutely fantastic, and you should be you in this moment. But there's still skills and there's process that you need to learn to go from being awkward in sales and having those issues to being highly confident. So the big one, number one, is all about conversations. The conversations that you're having are sales conversations. And the thing with the coffee chats, where people find themselves in a situation where they've gone, oh, I'm doing this new thing, I should tell you all about it. And the other person's, oh, it's great, we should catch up and we'll have coffee. You catch up, you have coffee, and they just think you're there to talk about your new career. It's just a friend talking about their new career. But in actual fact, you're wanting to sell an opportunity or put something on the table. Because there's no intent behind that conversation, it's not a sales conversation. There needs to be intent before you actually get into that conversation. So how do you actually create intent so that you're not just walking into a conversation that's just like, a coffee chat or around I was going to say the cubicle, but it's more the water filter thing. What am I trying to say? The water. You know what I mean. In the office. The water cooler, that's the one. And you have these chats with people. That's not a sales conversation. A sales conversation happens when there's intent to buy. They want to understand what you've got that will solve a problem. So there should be an intention. Now, the how of the intention, there's actually a cool program that I've launched just at the moment, which is Your Next 60K, which is about adding an extra $60,000 to your bottom line if you're in a business that's less than about $500,000. So it's really useful if you're going, let's say you're starting the business and you've got some momentum. You're going from 60,000, you want to get to 120 and have a reasonable wage, or you want to get from, like, say, 180, you've got a business that's starting to operate, you're needing support now, and you want to get to $240,000, this is ideally the thing that's going to just jump you straight there. How do you get an extra $5,000 a month so that you can get that extra $60,000 a year? And so the program itself covers off on a number of things, which is how to get those confident sales, how to get consistency in your leads and how to get good quality leads, how to get clear in your direction so that you know how you're positioning yourself to attract more of that business into your world. So one of the things that we talk about in that program is intent. How do you actually move someone from intent into a sales conversation? And then the sales conversation itself is a process. For me, it's just these 4 simple steps, which, like, number one, like, how do I build rapport with this person? Like, how do I make friends? And there are all sorts of ways to make friends, but you need to make friends before someone's going to tell you about what's actually happening in their business, which is the next step, doing discovery. Discovery is all about asking great questions and really understanding the person. And you're understanding the person and their problems so you can decide, is this a problem that I should be solving? Because sometimes it's not a problem that you should be solving. It's a problem you should be referring to your friend up the road, because they might be great at solving this specific problem. So if it's not something that you solve very well, I would suggest referring them to someone else, because you're going to only hurt your reputation by doing a poor job for somebody and ideally not solving the problem, which is the reason for sales, for helping. So in discovery, you can work that out. And also in discovery, you can work out like what's going on around them so that you can design that solution a little bit better for them. And at the end of the day, in the discovery process, you're not there to offer solutions. You're there to understand. Now, the stuff after that used to be solution. Now I've changed it up, and it's much more about collaboration, because the problem I find is that there are people in the world that have got these square pegs and they're trying to put them in round holes. So if you come into a sales conversation with a pre-packaged product, and so often people are productizing their offering far before they should be, because they haven't been into the market long enough. They haven't really understood the conversations and the problems. They haven't understood how people like to receive the solution. And so by productizing too early, you're literally going out of your way to stick a square peg in round holes. And people who have round holes do not like square pegs being forced into them. So don't do it. So how do you do it? Well, you collaborate. You talking with the person who has the problem, you're understanding their scenario, and so how you can add value and how you can solve the problem given their current situation. And by doing enough of these sales calls, you can start to get really clear about how people want the problem solved. At that point, when you've had quite a number of transactions, then start productizing the offer. But if you're new to the offer making process, then I would say collaborate with the customer so you can start designing the best possible outcomes. Right? It's not always going to be a case where you need to customize everything. You can productize over time. That's really about streamlining your business. But if you're trying to get off the ground, and $500,000 isn't just getting off the ground. You can have quite a good business running $500,000. But you're still in this earlier stage of the opportunity from your business. You're not going to have over 20 staff and things like that at a business of that size. So you have the opportunity to be a little bit more customizing, and in the process learn what would be the best product. There are, to give you a bad example, right? So there's a business that you may have heard of, Yellow Pages. Now they're Yellow now, and look, so they've got some really good people at Yellow. But one of the things they used to do was very much have one product, and they would jam it down the throat of anybody who had any problem. So rather than going, all right, what's the problem that you've got? Okay, I've got a problem. Well, we've got B solution, and we think B solution is going to solve A problem, which is 100% not true. They should have been referring people off when they didn't have the best outcome. But they would say, no, the way to solve this is through the directory, or the way to solve this is through Google Ads, or the way to solve this is through 100 other variations of things that they've got, without saying, is this the best way it could be solved? And so they didn't collaborate with the customer, they didn't collaborate with the industry, and so it becomes this sort of very energy intensive business where they're always trying to keep customers rather than have a customer for life. So I personally think it's not a great business model, but you know what? They've been doing it for a while, so who am I to judge? The process of collaboration, though, gets you to a point where it's so much easier for people to say yes, because they've been part of the process. They've designed whatever the offer is with you. And at the end of the day, you go, well, does this sound amazing? Yes, it does sound amazing. What would you like to do? They're going to ask, how much is it? Or what's the next step? That's the final stage, which is helping them say yes. Really understanding how are they going to be able to say yes. Now, if they literally do not have the dollars to invest in the thing that's going to solve their problem, then you really haven't qualified them beforehand. And that's the cool thing about this Next 60K program, is it shows you all the steps and the specific how-tos to make that happen. But if you're finding yourselves in conversations where people can't afford what you've got, you haven't qualified them properly. Or it's potentially just an excuse, right? Because they've got anxiety about taking the step forward. So how can you help them in that? There are multiple ways to, we'll take money, for instance. Let's say money was the issue, but it's not really the issue. It's kind of an issue, but they could get the money because the problem is actually a massive problem that they really need solved. And if they could get it solved, often money wouldn't be an issue. So how can you help them? Well, there's payment plans, there's financing, there's someone else can pay for it. You can get sponsorship. There are so many different ways of making that work, and that's what they're helping them say yes is. So there's money, there's time, there's the way it's delivered, there's who else needs to be in the room to make the decision, and so that's why sometimes you need to have not just one sales meeting. Maybe there's two sales meetings because you're working with a corporate entity and there are multiple decision makers. But it's interesting because that's often when people get ghosted, and they will say at the end of the thing, "Yep, just put in a proposal, send it through, and we'll come back to you." Right? So many people say that. This is a big one. I think if you are sending proposals without you attached to it, then you're going to lose more proposals than you're going to win. Ideally, you want to be there to present the proposal to make sure that you've actually got it right. Because there may be things in there that they will go, well, actually, I'm not 100% sure that that's how I want it delivered. In fact, those dates that you've mentioned aren't quite right. Now, if you just give them the proposal without you there to talk them through the options that they have, then they're going to see that as a yes or no answer, a binary decision, and they're going to say no. And then potentially they're going to feel awkward about saying no because they've had such a good collaborative conversation with you. And that's where the ghosting starts. So please, whatever you do, don't send proposals just on their own without you attached. Whatever you do, you want to be there with the proposal when it's being presented so that they can say yes to your face. Now, if you can't be in face, then there's in person or there's on the phone. There's a number of different ways, but you want to be in a conversation with those people. If you send a proposal without you attached, you are just letting luck decide. And basically every single thing that's in that proposal needs to be a yes, because if there are any no's, then it's a binary decision to no. Okay, so don't do that. So the conversation process is such a big one, and you need to understand how you process that. And yeah, we've got that in the 60K program. So if you're interested, let me know. So offers, how do you make offers? Well, that's part of that collaborative process. How do you make offers once you're wanting to productize? Well, that's another thing that we can potentially talk about in a future episode. And how do you get those yeses? So it is about helping them say yes. And if you've done the discovery work correctly, do they need to show it to somebody else to say yes? Do they have to report this to someone else? Are there other people that would need to be involved in the creation of the solution? When you understand that, you might actually kill the sales process on discovery and go, well, it actually sounds like it'd be even better if we could get like this whole team together and we could discuss it themselves. And I've done it a lot in the past because that in itself, like the design side, is the most valuable side of the whole outcome. And so instead of trying to solve the entire solution in that one conversation, all I've decided to provide is, how about we have a workshop that'll actually get the strategic elements that we need to get the outcome that we're kind of trying to create. And it's a lower cost item, but they say yes to that because it's the process of architecture and the process of design that is incredibly useful to them getting a good strategic outcome. So they'll pay for that. And so sometimes you don't look to actually get the big sale, the big consulting job, the big product sale, the big contract. What you do is you go, all right, what's the piece that I can solve to actually get into a conversation where I can become the incumbent and actually be there to help them solve the problem in the best possible way that I can. So sales is an interesting one, and I could talk about it. I could really talk about it all day, but I won't go on. We're talking about how to avoid the coffee chats. We've done that by actually looking at intent. We've got to make sure we've got intent. Time wasters wanting free information. Again, with intent, with qualification, we can solve that. People not showing up to calls. Really, if they don't show up to the call, again, there wasn't intent. Intent to be helped. Intent to buy. intent to have a problem solved, right? If they weren't showing any of those three, that's really the reason why. The ghosting one on the other side is usually because you were not there to answer questions and adjust and make the proposal flexible. It became this rock hard binary decision for them to say yes or no. And when it was a no, they felt awkward about the great conversation that you had up until that point. And it was interesting. I spoke to one client recently who had someone that they knew from the local area, had a great conversation with them, created a proposal, sent it through. The person wasn't able to say yes for whatever reason, but didn't communicate that back, and so ghosted them. But then it turned into ghosting when it came to like the local football club. So they're actually, they're all both members of the local football club. So every time he showed up, the other person would like pretend they didn't see them and start hiding from them. So it doesn't just happen via email. It just doesn't happen on the phone. There are all sorts of these different places where ghosting can happen. So you as the salesperson, you as the person who's putting that proposal out there, can be responsible and say, you know what, I'm not going to send a proposal because it could cause an awkward situation down the track. So I want to be there to talk with it. Now, and it's so much easier for people to say when you're there, look, can it be done a different way? And if you say, no, it can't, then that's a good reason to go, all right, well, we won't go ahead. And it's a choice. When you're in a sales situation, there are so many choices, both for the customer, which is why you want to collaborate with them, because if they don't feel like they've got choices, if they don't feel like they're in control of it, they feel like they're being technically sold to, and they're ideally being hunted, hunted or manipulated, right? So there's that choice. There's also the choice of who you want to work with. And I would suggest stop trying to work with people who do not have a clear intent and a clear problem and have the capacity for you to work with them. They don't have the cash, they don't have the time, whatever it might be. Get clear about those people before you get into the sales conversation so you can make those sales conversations so much easier. Now, again, I could talk about this all day, but I won't, because I have a program to jump into, which is the 60K program. Your next 60K, how can you add an extra $5,000 a month to the bottom line? So at the end of the year, you've increased your income by an extra $60,000. And it's by making sure you don't have holes all over the business, whether it be in sales, whether it be in lead generation, or whether it be in actual like content creation and direction on how you position yourself within the market. So if you're interested in getting another 60K into your income, then raise your hand, let me know, give me a call out or a shout out, and I'll show you how you can get involved. Now, I'm looking forward to speaking to you next week. I'm actually got an idea for a session that's coming up, so it's going to be a little bit exciting. I think it's very, very cool. So do come back. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button wherever you are getting this fantastic podcast, whether you're on Apple, whether you're on Google, whether you're on Spotify. It's interesting. Spotify is a really cool one, but I don't see as many people downloading the episodes from there. So if you are on Spotify, say, hello, I'm on Spotify, and just let me know that you are using it, because I'd love to know. And until next time, stay passionate, and I will catch you on the next one. Make sure to visit russellpearson.com for more podcast episodes, videos, and more. russellpearson.com.